In the heart of America's fractured justice system, where badges clash with gavels and prejudice runs deeper than the Mississippi, imagine this. Two rogue cops, blinded by their own bigotry, humiliate a black woman by shaving her head in a dingy precinct basement, only to discover she's the iron-fisted judge about to preside over their corruption trial. If that twist of fate doesn't make your blood boil and your pulse race, nothing will. This is the kind of raw, unfiltered story that exposes the rot in our society. And if you're in the USA or UK craving more hard-hitting narratives that pull no punches, hit that subscribe button right now. Don't just read, join the revolution of truth tellers today. The city of New Haven pulsed with the relentless rhythm of urban life. Its streets a labyrinth of towering skyscrapers casting long shadows over the forgotten alleys where justice often went to die. It was a humid summer evening in 2025, the kind where the air hung heavy with unspoken tensions, and Officer Marcus Hale, a burly white cop with a mustache that screamed 1980s action flick, slammed the door of his patrol car with more force than necessary. His partner, Officer Derek Voss, younger but no less jaded, smirked as he adjusted his belt, the weight of his service weapon a comforting reminder of the power they wielded. They'd been on the force for years, navigating the thin blue line with a mix of bravado and barely concealed resentment toward anyone who didn't fit their narrow view of the world. Tonight, their shift had led them to a routine traffic stop on the outskirts of the city's historic district, where old money met new struggles. The driver was a black woman in her late 40s, dressed in a sharp business suit that screamed corporate executive or perhaps something more authoritative. But to Hale and Voss, she was just another suspect in their eyes. Her license plate had a minor infraction, a tail light flickering like a dying firefly. But that was enough for them to pull her over, their lights flashing like accusatory beacons in the twilight. As they approached the sleek black sedan, Hale rapped on the window with his knuckles, his face a mask of feigned politeness. "License and registration, ma'am." He barked, his tone laced with the authority that came from years of unchallenged dominance. The woman inside, Judge Evelyn Harper, lowered the window with a calm that unnerved them. She was no stranger to this dance. As one of the few black female judges in the state, she'd faced scrutiny her entire career, from law school taunts to courtroom whispers. Her hair, a crown of tightly coiled curls that she wore with pride, framed a face etched with wisdom and resolve. She handed over her documents without a word, her dark eyes meeting Hale's with a steadiness that made him shift uncomfortably. Voss peered in from the passenger side, his flashlight beam dancing over the interior like an interrogator's spotlight. "Step out of the vehicle," Hale ordered, his voice dropping an octave as if to assert control. Evelyn complied, her heels clicking on the asphalt like the gavel she wielded in court. She knew her rights, but she also knew the volatility of such encounters. Escalation could turn deadly in seconds. What followed was a cascade of misunderstandings fueled by prejudice. Hale claimed he smelled marijuana, a lie born from the stereotype he clung to like a lifeline. Voss nodded in agreement, his eyes narrowing at Evelyn's composed demeanor. "We're going to have to search you," Hale said, his hands already moving toward her. Evelyn protested calmly, citing procedure, but the officers were in no mood for lectures. They cuffed her, standard protocol, they insisted, and bundled her into the back of the patrol car, ignoring her request for a female officer or a supervisor. The drive to the precinct was silent, save for the crackle of the radio dispatching mundane calls. Evelyn's mind raced. She was due in court the next morning for a high-profile corruption case involving two officers accused of planting evidence and excessive force. Little did she know, those officers were the very men now escorting her like a common criminal. At the precinct, a squat brick building that smelled of stale coffee and desperation, things escalated. The desk sergeant, a grizzled veteran named O'Malley, glanced at the paperwork with disinterest. "Processor," he muttered, waving them through. Hale and Voss led Evelyn to a holding cell in the basement, a dimly lit chamber with peeling paint and the faint echo of distant shouts. "We need to check for contraband," Voss said, his voice dripping with false justification. Evelyn's heart pounded. She demanded a lawyer, but her words fell on deaf ears. In a moment of sheer audacity, born from years of impunity, Hale produced a pair of clippers from a nearby drawer, meant for evidence processing, but tonight repurposed for humiliation. That hair could hide anything, he sneered, referencing a bogus policy he'd invented on the spot. Voss held her down as Hale buzzed away her curls, the clippers humming like a swarm of angry bees. Strands of hair fell to the floor like fallen soldiers, each one a piece of her dignity stripped away. Evelyn didn't scream. She endured, her mind plotting retribution even as tears welled in her eyes. The act was over in minutes, leaving her scalp bare and vulnerable, a stark contrast to the powerful figure she cut in robes. Unbeknownst to Hale and Voss, this wasn't just any arrest. Evelyn Harper wasn't a random driver. She was the Honorable Judge Evelyn Harper, presiding over the trial of officers Hale and Voss themselves. The corruption case had been building for months. Whistleblowers had come forward with videos of the duo planting drugs on suspects, beating confessions out of innocence, and pocketing bribes from local gangs. The district attorney had pushed for a swift trial, and Evelyn had been assigned due to her reputation for fairness and unflinching pursuit of justice. But in their arrogance, the officers hadn't bothered to run her ID through the system properly. A clerical error, or perhaps willful ignorance, had listed her as a Harper civilian. As they locked her in the cell, laughing about their thorough search, Evelyn sat in the darkness, her bald head a badge of their folly. She memorized their badge numbers, their faces, every detail that would seal their fate. Morning broke with the clamor of the precinct coming to life. Hale and Voss, nursing hangovers from a late-night bar crawl after their shift, arrived at the courthouse in ill-fitting suits, their lawyers whispering strategies in the hallway. The courtroom was packed, reporters from local news outlets, activists chanting outside for police reform, and families of victims seeking closure. Judge Harper's chambers were abuzz with her staff wondering about her unusual tardiness. She was always punctual, a stickler for time. Meanwhile, back at the precinct, a junior officer processing releases stumbled upon Evelyn's file. His eyes widened as he cross-referenced her name. Judge Evelyn Harper, missing since last night. Panic ensued. Calls were made, superiors notified. By the time Hale and Voss took their seats in the defendant's box, the precinct was in chaos, scrambling to cover their tracks. The bailiff announced the judge's entrance, and the room fell silent. The door opened, and in walked Evelyn, her head held high despite the makeshift scarf she'd fashioned from a spare blouse to cover her shaved scalp. Gasps rippled through the crowd as she ascended to the bench, her robes flowing like a cape of authority. Hale and Voss froze, recognition dawning like a slow-motion nightmare. "That's her," Voss whispered, his face paling. Hale swallowed hard, sweat beading on his forehead. Evelyn banged her gavel, calling the court to order. "Officers Hale and Voss," she began, her voice steady as steel, "you stand accused of corruption, evidence tampering, and abuse of power. But before we proceed, there's a matter of personal interest I must address." The twist unfolded like a thunderclap. Evelyn removed her scarf, revealing her bald head to the courtroom. Murmurs turned to outrage as she recounted the events of the previous night. The unlawful stop, the false accusations, the humiliating shave, all captured on precinct cameras that her staff had already subpoenaed. The defendant's lawyers stammered objections, but Evelyn overruled them with the precision of a surgeon. "This is not just a case," she declared. "It's a reckoning." The trial that followed was a spectacle, with evidence piling up like dominoes ready to fall. Witnesses testified to Hale and Voss's pattern of racism. Black suspects disproportionately targeted, women demeaned, communities terrorized. Body cam footage showed them laughing about teaching lessons to those they deemed inferior. But the story deepened with unexpected layers. As the trial progressed, Evelyn uncovered a larger conspiracy. Hale and Voss weren't rogue agents. They were part of a network within the department, protected by higher-ups who turned a blind eye for political favors. A whistleblower